Hey, Chelsea, can you hear me?
Good morning, Patrick. Yes, I can.
Okay, great. We'll get started here then in 2 or 3 minutes.
Great.
Good morning, Patrick.
Morning, Carol.
Did you have a big celebration for the year of the ox?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about that. Yeah. So yeah, it should be fun.
Good.
Good morning, everyone. This is Patrick Jones in Spokane. For that matter, sunny Spokane. I hope you'll see some of that blue sky today that we're fortunate to have in northeast Washington. I'm going to start the program in a couple of minutes. I'd like to get the number of participants up to about 50 or 60, and then we'll get going. So stay tuned. All right, shall we get started? Chelsea, can you put up that first slide? Just rules of the road here, folks. Please keep your mic on mute. And as always, the content of today's meeting will be available shortly after we break up. So this is the February edition of the Greater Columbia ACH's Leadership Council series. And as you can see by the agenda, or have seen by the agenda, this is going to be largely directed to ourselves and then to those whom through work or family or in our private lives we interact with. And it's really about, I would interpret this, the concept of resilience. Before we start though, I'd just like to point out that we are in a special year as of last Saturday. That is the Chinese New Year, which is the largest celebration in the world, with probably close to 2 billion people celebrating in one form or another. And as I've done in the past with the ACH, I just wanted to point out that there might be some characteristics of this particular Chinese zodiac animal that applies to our work. And so this is the ox. You see the Chinese rendering up on top, and then in pronunciation is new. And new can be both masculine and feminine. And it has, I think, a few characteristics that I'd just like to share with you before we go on to this notion of resilience. And I think they're appropriate for what we've been through and probably what we are facing as we look at the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years of the ACH. The first is that oxes are one of the most persevering creatures, if you will, of the zodiac. They never give up. And that's probably the most striking characteristic of an ox. In agriculture, they are known for their hard work and their ability to just keep on going. Oxes are also known for responsibility. And I think just speaking for the staff and my perspective on the staff is that there's a real strong sense of responsibility of doing this right in the 9-county area that we have some influence in or on. And so that's another part of our upcoming year, is trying to get this right. A couple more points would be that oxes are very pragmatic. And so I think that we've seen, at least in my time here at the ACH, that if something isn't working, or if we need to move on to something else that is a higher priority, we'll do it. And there's not a agenda that's set in stone other than some of those guidelines we get from HHS and HMA. But oxes are definitely a pragmatic sort and are willing to work with others. And finally, I just want to pass on something that a Chinese friend of mine told me the other day about oxes, and because she said the year of the ox is actually one of the most favorite years for her in the Chinese zodiac. And I said, why is that? She said, well, you know, they are very good at transforming things. And she said, think about where they come from. They're the beast of burden in the agricultural community that was China for so many millennia. And in the field, they convert or transform basically grasses and sort of low value products, at least for humans, into something that humans like, which would be rice, for example, or vegetables, because they're the ones obviously pulling the plows and doing the heavy lifting. And then she said the feminine part of new is also highly esteemed because they take kitchen scraps and they don't take a lot of food and they turn it into milk, something that we as humans need a lot. So I thought, well, that's trying to put these pieces together. I said, well, this is really, and these are 2 acts of transformation. And I thought about what we have done in the Greater Columbia ACH, and we have really tried to transform some of the healthcare delivery system in the 9-county area. So I think it's only appropriate that we continue that act of transformation this year. and do it under the auspices of the Year of the Ox. By the way, we still have another week of celebrating the final day of New Year's, if you will, or Spring Festival is what it's also known as in China, is this coming Friday. And if, for those of you who want to do this, you put your red lanterns up and have a very happy day and a feast day. So let's go back to this general notion that I think we're going to cover today, which is resilience. And could you pull that slide up again? I just wanted to give you a very brief definition of what resilience is. And it is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, or a toughness, both physical, mental, emotional, and perhaps spiritual. So that is really the leitmotif. That's the theme that we are going to hear about today, both from sort of a more objective perspective, and then from a more adaptive or how-to perspective. And then finally, we'll wrap up after the break in a conversation about what is the ACH doing with this notion of resilience and coping with what the pandemic has thrown at us. And at the end, you'll see here our own staff member, Diane, is going to lead us in a bit of a guided discussion. So with that, let's take it away to the first agenda item, unless anybody has some real quick questions. Okay, so I don't know who's speaking from Greater Columbia Behavioral Health, but the floor is yours.
You're on mute, Cindy. Oh, there you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Perfect. Perfect. I appreciate that introduction, and I really agree with what you said. It has been a tough year for everybody, and we really have been resilient in our region. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk to you about today. So first, my name is Cindy Saunders. I'm the co-director here at Greater Columbia ASO. I'm also the quality manager and the compliance officer. And we had our board meeting here a couple weeks ago, and I gave just a brief overview of some of the crisis data from 2019 to 2020. And so Diane asked if I would come and present this overview to your team, and I'm happy to do that. And this is a review of the crisis data, not date. I wasn't going to do a PowerPoint, and then last night I decided quickly to put one together for you. So we have 5 crisis agencies in our region. I'm sure you're familiar with that. They are some are from very small areas to larger areas like Yakima. And we actually have the most crisis providers in one ASO in the entire state. So we did a comparison at the end of 2020 and looked at how did we do compared to 2019. And we actually did very good. I want to make a shout out right away to our crisis providers. Did an excellent job, and looking at this data, we can really see that. So we expected that the crisis calls would just skyrocket in our region due to COVID and due to people not being able to be seen face to face and having their services interrupted, but they actually remained relatively stable throughout the year. We did see an increase in May and June, and what this primarily was due to was suicidal thoughts. So every month we get a report from our crisis provider, the crisis line provider, about what the #1 reason was that people were calling. And throughout most of the year, it was suicidal thoughts. By the end of the year, it actually changed to anxiety, which I thought was very interesting. So you can see that our numbers remained relatively stable. They did go up a little bit. I want to say that this is really a testament to how great our crisis providers did in their region, because across the state, the crisis numbers skyrocketed. And in many areas, the crisis lines were overwhelmed and were not able to take all of the calls that were coming in. So to see this relatively low number and stable number across the entire year really tells a story about how well our crisis providers were taking care of their individuals. And then if we go to the next slide, just some information. So we track ITA detentions, and again, this number remained relatively stable throughout the entire year. We did see an increase in detentions in March and April, which we expected to see. That was completely appropriate. But overall, they stayed relatively stable, which we thought was amazing. We saw across the state again that in other regions, hospitals were full, people were being put on single bed surts, and the providers in this region, all 5 of the crisis providers, really were able to maintain their individuals in their community, work with them in creative ways to keep them out of the hospital. So they did a very good job. We also saw a relatively low number of SUD ITA detentions. The highest was in August, which we had 28. And overall, our providers do a really good job. The SUD providers in our region do a really good job of keeping the people maintained and stable in their facilities, because we don't have a high number of SUD ITAs in our region. So this is a really good number to see. And then if we go to the next slide. So these are, I apologize, they're kind of cramped on into one page, but I was hoping, you could take it later and look at it more closely if you wanted to. So every day we do a crisis log, and what this is we report out to all of the MCOs how many people from each MCO call our crisis line. So this is a breakdown of the total crisis contacts by MCO that we had for 2020. And so you can see the overview here, and then as you look at this, I'm going to talk about the next slide, but you can keep it on whichever slide you prefer. But you can see that the majority of the calls were from Medicaid consumers. We had a total of 12,073 people who called that were Medicaid consumers. This is not a surprise. Molina Healthcare had the highest amount of consumers call the crisis line with 4,523. One of the unique things that we did see that was interesting for us was that United Healthcare had a total of 57 crisis calls. And the reason this is interesting is because this is a region that does not have a contract with United Healthcare. So that's showing us that some people from our region are from out of the area, and they're here and they're calling in crisis as well. And then there was a total of 8,338 of those individuals that were state-only consumers. And when we say state-only, that's just somebody that doesn't have Medicaid. So it could be people who have private insurance, just they're non-Medicaid consumers. And then if we go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is a breakdown, and again, I apologize, it's very small. I'm hoping you can just look at it later if you're interested. This is a breakdown of all of the crisis services that were reported out for 2019 and 2020. So some of these areas are metrics that the ASO has to report to the Healthcare Authority and the MCOs monthly on. So if you look at this, we had one of the areas is the percentage of calls answered within 30 seconds. That's one of the metrics that we have to report on, and we have to answer our calls within 30 seconds on the crisis line. And you can go ahead and move to the next slide if you want. This has information. So you can see that overall in 2020 and there was roughly about 270 more calls in 2020 than 2019. I'm sorry, less calls, which was really interesting to us because, again, we thought we were going to have many more calls in 2020 than 2019, but it actually turned out to be the opposite. So again, that metric I was talking about with calls answered within 30 seconds. In 2019, we had 43,216 calls answered within 30 seconds, which was 88.8% of the total calls. And then we saw in 2020, this actually improved, and we had 43,694 calls answered within 30 seconds. And that is an improvement because that's a total of 95.1% of the total calls. So this was really good to see. We also had an increase in ITA detentions from 2019 to 2020, as I said, but it was just barely under 100. And one of the reasons that I personally, this is my own opinion, think that happened was that at the beginning of, in 2019 or in 2018, going into 2019, we would authorize crisis stabilization beds for non-Medicaid consumers on a voluntary basis. And we were authorizing 2 to 3 days for that. And this is a way for people to go into a short-term crisis stabilization facility and avoid getting hospitalized. Hope that's the goal. Well, midway through, it was about actually in March of 2020 when we realized we just can't afford to do that anymore. That money was coming out of state-only funds, and these funds actually need to be passed out to the crisis providers to provide services. So we stopped authorizing voluntary crisis stabilization. And the reason I think this is parallel and correlates is because The provider that was doing the crisis stabilization for us primarily was Lord's Counseling Center. They have a unit there that we were using quite a bit. And when you look at one of the slides previous, if you look at the agencies and who had the most ITAs, Lord's actually increased in ITAs by about 100 for the year. So to me, it makes sense that because we stopped authorizing some of those voluntary crisis stabilization services, more people were detained to the hospital. And again, that's something that the ASO, we just can't pay for voluntary services with state-only funds unless there's extra funding, which is very rare. And then face-to-face contacts went down. We completely anticipated this. Most of our providers went to telehealth, and they were very creative in some of the things they did. I know Comprehensive set up a tent out on their lawn when it was nice weather, and they were able to do some services in a tent in a private area. There was a lot of really creative things that the providers did to be able to still meet with the consumers, to be able to still help them in crisis. And we really saw this a lot in our region with the crisis numbers remaining low. So the face-to-face contacts went from 18,920 in 2019 to 15,715. Again, we expected that. Another one of the areas that we have to report out on is single bed certs. And what that is when somebody is detained, but there's no bed for them to be placed in, then the DCR can put them on a single bed cert. And essentially they're in a hospital setting and they're in a bed on a hold waiting to get into a hospital. So the total number of single bed certs that we had in our region for 2020 was 14. And I just really want to express this is an absolutely amazing number. Across the state, the single bed cert rate is so high. And there was some months that there was a total of 800 to 900 single bed certs for 1 month. And our region had 14 for the entire year. So that was very good. Our providers are doing a really good job with finding beds for the consumers. And if they can't find a bed, then finding an alternative to hospitalization. And then another number that we have to report on is no bed reports. And it's very similar. It's when there's no bed to be found, then the DCR has to report up to the state that they couldn't find a bed. And the ASO has to follow up and say what happened to that consumer. So for 2020, there was only a total of 10 of those. So this is just a brief overview, just letting you know that the providers in this region are doing a fantastic job. And I don't think that we really recognize them enough. We know that they're doing a great job in day-to-day services, but in this pandemic, in a time when we really expected our numbers to skyrocket, our costs to go up and have so many more ITAs or crisis interventions, the providers were really able in the Greater Columbia region to keep it on a maintained level and keep people stable without utilizing the crisis system excessively. So I just wanted to present that. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's see what we've got for questions. I haven't looked in the chat box. Chelsea, do you see anything? Any questions for Cindy?
Patrick, I wanted to ask a question. This is Carol, and thank you, Cindy, for providing these statistics. And we are very proud of our behavioral health providers and our primary care providers and all of our providers. But when Diane and I heard this presentation, we were just kind of blown away. And we were hoping, and I actually texted Cicely Zorns at the BHASO meeting to say, do you think that practice transformation is helping our behavioral health providers? And she responded that in the positive. And so we're hoping that that has had some influence in these numbers. I don't know if there's anybody else on the line that would like to weigh in on that, but there has to be a reason that we're showing such great progress, and we'd like to think that our providers have been excelling because of some of the technical assistance that our navigators have been giving them.
And Carol, I have just a quick comment on that. I'm sure that that is also part of everything that has been helping, but historically, this region has just had a really good understanding of their consumers. They have a knowledge of who's in their system and how to treat them. And it is just a very unique situation where sometimes throughout the year we were at meetings and we're just asking ourselves, what is going on? What are our providers doing that are keeping these numbers so low? Because across the region or state, we saw such high numbers. And it could be many alternative things such as the practice transformation. And I just feel like the crisis providers have been in business for so long. The consumers stay in our area. They just know their consumers and they know what they need, and they just do a fantastic job. And I do want to say, I saw that you're talking about the COPE-COM presentation next. Since I have learned about that, I've actually passed that out to people. I've printed off some of the booklets and given them at presentations that I've given. So I think that now that the word is out about that more, we're going to be able to use that more, and we're going to be able to direct people to your website more for that information. I think it's very helpful, and I appreciate that you guys have put that together.
Thank you, Cindy, for your presentation. And I agree, we have a special group of providers in our region.
Any more questions of Cindy? Let me see if we have any in the chat box. We have some time if you wanted to just go over some of those points that she made. Cindy, while people are making up their mind whether they want to ask you a question, I'm an economist, and so I'm not a specialist in this field. So can you tell me what certs and ITA detentions are?
Yes, I apologize for that. ITA is when somebody is an involuntary treatment hold. So when they're detained to a hospital against their will, that is an ITA.
That's what I thought.
And then a single bed certification it's when somebody has been placed on a hold, they have met the medical necessity to be detained to a hospital, but there's not a bed available at a hospital, and so at a psychiatric hospital. So they're placed on a hold in a medical facility until a bed can become available.
Gotcha. Okay. And the lower the better on that.
Absolutely. Yes. Lower the better.
Okay. So we now have over 80 people on the line. Any questions from all of you for Cindy?
There's one question in the chat box that said, any updates on suicide rates across the Greater Columbia?
Oh, there it is. Yep, from Becky. Did you catch that?
I actually do not have the update on the suicide rates. I do believe this is an agenda item for our Healthcare Authority meeting next week. We are talking about suicide rates. This has come up a lot due to the new House Bill 998, the new overarching crisis line that is it's actually being presented right now. So they're really looking at the suicide rates, and that's one of the reasons that Senator Dingra has put this bill forward, is to try and decrease the suicide rates in our state. So I don't have any answers on that yet, but it is something that the state is actively looking at.
And this is a comment from Patrick to Becky. This is something we track with our various data projects throughout Eastern Washington, is actually the rate. And the unfortunate fact is that in most communities, the rate has gone up considerably over the last 5 years.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Are there any other questions for Cindy, either just by raising your hand or in the chat box? Have we got them all, Chelsea? All right. I'm not seeing any more.
It says Kirk has a comment.
Kirk has a comment, and then Kevin has a comment. So why don't we take Kevin's first, because I think it related just to this prior discussion, and then Kirk Williamson will get you on the line. So Kevin?
I was just curious as to whether the increase, if the increase that we've seen in completed suicides offsets the decrease in ITA.
I would just, this would just be a guess. I would say no. I would say that they're not related. A lot of times when somebody completes suicide, they haven't had a hospitalization recently, or they haven't been ITA'd. At least on the data that we have at the ASO, we only get information on state-only consumers or non-Medicaid. And then we've had 3 recently in the last few months, and all 3 of those had not been detained to a hospital previously. So I don't think that those 2 are related.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. And Kirk, would you like to pose your question?
I'd just like to pop in after Cindy mentioned the 988 suicide line. Also in the state legislature is Senate Bill 5327, which creates a 24/7 confidential tip line targeted for under 25 years old. It is receiving good support, but it can always use more. It's an idea that will allow people under 25 particularly to make a confidential report of any number of things, from school shootings to potential suicides to bullying. It's worth looking at. Senate Bill 5327.
Okay, thank you, Kirk. And we have a question from Estacio. Estacio, would you like to just quickly pose that question for Cindy?
Hi, good morning. I apologize. I have an unsteady internet connection. I'm just wondering, how does this work with the popularity of those online and virtual counseling programs? So like if I'm seeing a therapist online who may be somewhere else, do they have the capacity to connect with some of these services if the patients they're looking at have these kinds of emergency situations come up?
Yes, so that's a really good question. It's probably going to depend on if they're going through a private online therapist versus they're going through telehealth and working with one of the community mental health facilities. They both will have access to be able to call a crisis line. They're supposed to be able to do a warm line transfer if somebody is doing an online therapy session and it turns bad and the person is starting to identify some suicidal ideation. That person that they're talking to is supposed to be able to warm line transfer them to a crisis line that will be able to get them evaluated by a DCR immediately. Some of this hasn't been going as smooth as they wanted, and so the state actually just implemented a few months ago a mandatory telehealth training that anybody who uses telehealth, which is what any online counseling would be considered, has to take a training in order to learn how to make sure that they understand that they have to be able to transfer somebody who becomes suicidal. All of the behavioral health providers in our region, the community-based providers, have a system in place that they can do this, and most of them have DCRs on staff that they can, with the exception of the SUD providers, that they can immediately call on to get a person assessed for that.
That's excellent. We're hearing a lot of concerns in the community with regards to that. And I know we got to figure it out as these are all new steps and protocols, but it's so important to have that warm handoff. So thank you.
Yes, definitely. And that's one of the areas that the 988 bill or 998 bill addresses as well, is that they recognize that there is a gap in being able to transfer people and be able to get services that they need immediately across the state.
Okay, and just in the interest of time, we'll take one more question, and this is posed by Dan Ferguson. And Dan, go ahead and repeat it if you like, but I'll just say in advance, I say you may know more of this answer than Cindy, but see what she says.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that confidence. So my question is, how does this data support workforce development trends and focus? And I have a particular interest in a lot of work that's being done across the state in development of peers and substance use disorder treatment professionals and partnerships in behavioral health. So there's lots going on, and I'm just wondering what behavioral health organizations are doing to think about workforce trends.
Yeah, and he was right. I do not have answers on that. That would be something more that the local community providers would be able to look at and answer, because I'm only getting crisis data and only working with crisis providers. I don't see what happens afterwards or the follow-up of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure a big need though, right? Both of you?
Yes,
would agree?
definitely.
Okay. Well,
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Cindy, if you didn't know, the ACH is trying to work on that.
Good.
Okay,
I believe
well,
it.
a round of applause for Cindy. Thank you, Cindy, for that excellent start to our meeting and setting the stage. And now we're going to move into, I guess, a much different track, and that is, what can we do about this? And the Cope, Calm, and Care approach has really gotten some kudos in the region over the last few weeks. I sit on the Council of Governments in Yakima County, and it's been brought up in the last two meetings So it's definitely making inroads in that particular county. And I can't help but think it's doing the same throughout the ACH. So I don't know who from Catholic Charities is going to talk about this, but whoever that is, the floor is yours, and please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Adriana, and I'm a case manager with Catholic Charities, and I will be helping in this presentation today.
Great, thank you, Adriana.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Adriana, it's not coming up.
Can you guys see that?
There it goes.
Perfect. Okay, so this is the Cope Com Care Practice the Pause presentation, and this comes from an idea from Kara Mouse. I've been thinking of disaster psychology and looking at COVID-19 as kind of a natural disaster and everything that is going on. And like the presentation before has been discussing about, the increased rates in suicide and, how are we handling this? How are our communities handling COVID-19 right now? And so this is kind of where this comes from, an idea of helping our community build that emotional resilience during this time. And Diane, feel free to jump in at any time. I know you've been our right hand in this. And I know a lot of people have probably seen this presentation before, and so we'll do it again. So this starts off with, so Cope Com Care, there are 3 4-letter acronyms. So COPE is looking at the thinking skills, COM looking at doing skills, and CARE looking at the being skills. So COPE thinking skills comes more of the cognitive behavioral therapy approach, looking at the connections between our thoughts, behaviors, and our emotions. And then looking at the COM is more of the doing skills. So bringing in more of those type of like breathing exercises and things like that. And then CARE looking at those being skills, looking at values and what we can do to build connections during this time. And we'll go into detail of those. So the first one, looking at CALM, right? So this is looking at like I said, the connections between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And the idea behind this is that if we start becoming aware of one, whether it be our thoughts, feelings, or behaviors, and looking at how each of those connect to one another. And if we're able to become aware of some of those negative thoughts, feelings, or behaviors and look in towards changing one of those, then we can affect the other two. So usually thoughts may or may not be the easiest one to start with. It kind of depends on like looking at, we've been working with a lot of schools in this aspect. And so thoughts might be a little harder for like the younger kiddos to kind of think of, but usually behaviors can be an easier one to start with, and then kind of working backwards that ways. And so this breaks it down through each of the letters. So COPE, the C for COPE, check for automatic reactions or thoughts. And so what is the thought that I'm having? What is my automatic thought that I am having because of what is going on? And observe the emotion and behavior that are connected to this thought. So how is this thought interacting with my behavior and my emotions? And then thinking of or planning for an alternative thought or reaction. And so this is more of, not going from one extreme to another, right? We're not going to go from, the pandemic is horrible and nothing is ever going to change to everything's going to be, butterflies and daisies, right? We're looking at something more kind of like in the middle, right? Changing our thoughts to something that's going to be more helpful rather than those unhelpful thoughts that we might be having. And then E, execute for those positive changes, right? Start working on changing those thoughts. And so this breaks it down even further. So the C, like I said, check for the automatic thoughts, the first thought that we are having, and start asking ourselves, why are we having this thought? What's going on? How is this affecting my feelings and behaviors? And is there healthier way to respond to this? What are my options that I have? What would be a more helpful way to be thinking about what is going on at this moment? The O, just observing the emotion and the behaviors that come with it, right? The thoughts that we're having, identifying that chain reaction between those three and how they are connected, and then start working on a plan for change. And then the P, plan an alternative response, coming up with different alternative thoughts or ways to think about the current situation. And then the E, execute your plan to create a change that you might be needing, and practicing these new alternative thoughts. And remembering that we have the power to change our thinking. Any questions before I move forward? I did see some things pop up in the chat. No questions? Okay. So the CALM model. So this is more of our doing skills, right? So now that we've thought about our thoughts and how they are connected to our behaviors and feelings, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to handle these stressors? What are we going to do? And so this is broken down to the different age groups. So we have workbooks for each of these age groups. So there's one from 5 to 12, 13 to 18, and also adults. And so these skills are broken down for the developmentally appropriate for each of those age groups, and we'll go through those as well. So this is doing skills for calm. So C, controlling our breathing and heart rate. So for this one, what we have been talking about is really learning, what is a normal heart rate for ourselves? What is our resting heart rate? What does it look like? How does it change, right? And so we've been talking about learning how to take an appropriate heart rate, and then looking at what happens when we are feeling stressed, what happens when we are feeling calm, and how do we affect that? And then talking about our controlled breathing, right? Talking about those breathing exercises, deep breathing, looking at like square breathing for adults, or maybe those bubble breathing exercises for children, and focusing on those things. And then attending to the present moment. So this one's looking more along the lines of like our 5 senses, right? Focusing on what's going on right now, right here. So I know right now with COVID, a lot of us are thinking about, what happened in the past, how things used to be, how great it was, and then kind of looking at the future and what's going to happen. We don't know. Are things going to stay the way they are? Is it going to change? How is that going to change? So instead of focusing on the past or present, or on the past or future, we're looking more at the present and attending to that. And then listening to your thoughts and feelings, right? So this is more just listening, kind of like the observing again of those thoughts and feelings, right? We're not looking at whether they are good or bad. It's just kind of riding that wave of those thoughts and feelings. It's just, this is how I'm feeling, and that's okay. These are the thoughts I'm having, it's okay. And then M, master relaxation and body scanning. So this is looking into like progressive muscle relaxation, and then those body scans. So again, breaking it down, the controlling our heart rate and breathing. And this is also looking at the physiologically of what deep breathing does as well when we are practicing those deep breathing skills. And if we're panicking, our bodies cannot panic and deep breathe at the same time, right? It does one or the other. So by implementing that deep breathing skills and those relaxation skills and calming ourselves down, then we can't panic anymore. And then attending to the present moment. So this is talking about like those 5 senses that I talked about earlier. So like, what do I see? What do I hear? What can I touch? What can I taste? What can I smell in the present moment? And then again, listening to our thoughts and feelings, acknowledging them and letting them pass over like a wave, right? Riding that wave, knowing that there's going to be a peak in those emotions, those thoughts, and then it's going to come back down, right? It's temporary. It's not always going to be feeling this way. And then M for master your anxiety, right? So this is looking for like at the progressive muscle relaxations and body scans. So for our kiddos, our younger kiddos, we have the activities of like the roly-poly bugs, kind of like scrunching your body up really, really tight and then kind of relaxing your body. And then for the adolescents and adults, it breaks down progressive muscle relaxation and how to focus on each muscles and working our way up or working our way down. Any questions? Before I keep going. I lost the chat box. I don't know where it went.
I think there was a question regarding how is the outreach going. Chris had said he saw billboards, it looks like, and some advertising, but how has the outreach to the schools been going?
Yes, outreach has been going really, really great. We did a presentation last week with Christ the teacher, the parents there, and got a request to do another presentation for parents as well. We are connecting with other agencies around the region to kind of train the trainers type of presentation so that they can also bring this to their communities and to their agencies and schools. And kind of go from there. Right now, we're focusing on meeting with ESDs and then kind of going from there, working with school districts and figuring out how they would like us to communicate with the school districts and teachers. And some have already asked to like break it down by age groups, the trainings by age group. So meeting with teachers that are working with kiddos like that are in the 5 to 12 range and the adolescents and things like that, and really focusing on how can they implement these things into the classroom, such as like writing activities or using exercises like the breathing exercises after recess or lunch or things like that, just kind of bringing bits and pieces into the classroom however they see fit. And yes, there's been lots of billboards, lots of advertisements, NPR, I've heard the ads on NPR, seen some streaming ads and some TV ads as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nicole will go more into detail about the media presentation after she does the training.
So Adriana, this is Patrick. Tell me how this works just at the very basic level with acronyms, but then more importantly, just substantively with the Spanish-speaking population of our region.
Yeah, so we have all of this material is also in Spanish as well. And so we have the workbooks as well in English and in Spanish. And so this is really just about outreaching those different organizations to bring this to our Spanish-speaking population. Right now, I did reach out to the YWCA and NAMI and working with them, and also through the Yakima Community Coalition and trying to bring that through other agencies that way.
The website is also in Spanish as well. So when you click on the website, you can either do English or Spanish. So it's in both.
Great. Any more questions before we shove on with more of Adriana's presentation? All right, why don't you, I don't see any, Adriana, why don't you carry on?
All right, so the CARE model, so this is the more of the being and growing, more of the existential type of skills. So looking at like, what do we value, you know, what's going to make me happy? How do I work towards that? And how do I bring value into our community as well? So this is the CARE. So C, connect to other people or ideas. So we know that, you know, as human beings, we are social beings. We need to connect to other people. It's just what helps us, right? We need to have those connections with other people. And so if anything, you know, can't stress this enough, finding a way to connect to other people that have the same ideas or same values during this time. And obviously can't really do it person to person. So finding ways to do it over Zoom or maybe at a distance or things like that. So trying to keep connecting to people through this time. And then accepting change, right? Knowing that as much as we want to change what's going on right now, it's out of our control. You know, there's only certain things that we can control, and accepting that this is it. This is where we're at right now, and kind of rolling with the punches and going with the flow. And then R, reasoned with choices or purposes for growth. And then E, engaged in mindful living. So I think of these kind of going into both of them kind of going hand in hand, right? So looking at how can I grow, looking at those different values. So again, connecting with people and connecting with meaningful people, even if it is, you know, just kind of small, just trying to stimulate our own personal growth and our own support. And A, accepting change and growth. So making sure that we can be flexible and adapt to what's going on in the new situations and circumstances that we are dealing with at this time. And then our reason with ourselves about choices and behaviors, right? Planning to devote some time to different activities that can help us with our own values and happiness, whatever makes us happy, right? What is it that makes us happy? And looking at, say, for like the adolescents, there is some activities there that talk about, you know, what are the values, what brings reason to our beings and things like that. And then E, engaging in this. So once we know, you know, that we have this reason, these values, things like that, what's our plan? How are we going to engage in that? How are we going to make a commitment to find purpose and motivation in our life, right? And that is the bulk of the presentation.
Okay, we have ample time for questions of Adriana.
Did you want to go into the toolkits for a little bit, Adriana, to kind of explain the toolkits to them?
Yes, just going to bring those up.
These are what's really important is these toolkits, and they're developed by the age groups, and they're each developed by the age group, and having them set up so the younger kids can understand, then the teenagers, and then adults.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this one here, can you guys see this okay?
Correct.
Okay, so this one here is our 5 to 12. And all of these are in English and Spanish and are accessible on our website. We do have these made up already, like in workbook form, and we have included some stickers for the age groups 5 to 12. But if for any reason, you know, you run out, or you want some more, or you just want to print out certain aspects of them, all of this is on the webpage. So all of the workbooks start off with kind of what is a pause, and talk about what is a pause and why are we doing this during this time in developmentally appropriate language for each age group. So for this one, talking about more along the lines of video games, the pause. And then it gets into different activities that they could be doing. So this one here is like that bubble breath or belly breathing for our kiddos. And then also talks about, you know, why are we feeling this way? What is going on? Why is COVID making us feel this way? And also normalizing those feelings as well. And then this kind of goes through, how do we do this? How do we practice making a pause, right? So this one breaks it down to when you think or act in a way that doesn't feel good, and then kind of breaks down the steps. And also when you are feeling good things, right? So it's not only when the negative feelings or thoughts, but also those positive ones. And then it brings it into another activity. So this is more of the progressive muscle relaxation, those scrunch bugs. And so this one, I think this is the really cool part. So this workbook comes with stickers for all of these emotions here, and it breaks it down, each emotion, into different activities for these kiddos. And so here, it goes through every single emotion. So you can have kiddos come in and they can draw something, they can put a sticker, they can write, however they see fit. And it goes through each of those 8 emotions. Or like, what makes me feel sad? How do I want to feel? You know, what can I do? And then at the very, very end, as I get there, it comes with a weekly chart. So this is more of looking at, you know, just emotional awareness, right? So kind of with this developmental age, that's kind of what's going on at this time, right? Looking at emotional awareness, and trying to figure out, like, you know, how do I feel today? What, you know, looking at, you know, the interaction between behaviors as well. So this is a way, kind of monitoring how they're feeling. They can use the stickers. The stickers do fit in these little boxes. You can, if your kiddo's more of writing or drawing, more than welcome to do that. And so it comes with those there. And then a little bit of our information here. And then our teen one. So this is the one for our teens and adolescents. And again, breaking it down, what is a pause? Why are we doing this? And again, normalizing what's going on. Why are we feeling this way? And developmentally appropriate language. And the really cool thing about the teen one is these little vignettes that come with it. So this is like little stories that kind of come in with this workbook, and also break down the pause, the cope, calm, care acronyms as well down here. And there's a few of those. And so again, looking at, you know, how do we change this? How do we incorporate the cope, calm, care? And so this one breaks it down here. And then because of this developmental age, there's usually a lot of like self-reflection, kind of who am I, trying to figure out that identity and things like that. A lot of, and what can be helpful during this time is a lot of writing. So what we have done for this age group is lots of emotional writing and prompts. So this breaks it down, I believe, for 2 weeks, I think 8 days, for different writing prompts. And so what we've been working with the schools, I've been, you know, thinking about making this like English writing assignments, or other type of like writing assignments that they can do for school. And so this has quite a bit. So lots of writing. And the other really cool thing about our teen one, right? Because our teens love those apps. So we have 4 different apps here that teens can also use to help with the relaxation techniques. Headspace is one that has been pretty popular. So these are the ones that we have chosen that our teens can look into as well to help them with that. And we have our adult one. So the adult one goes more into detail with more of the what is COVID and kind of like how that is more into like the disaster psychology, natural disaster type of stuff. So this is here, again, what is the pause? Why are we doing this? Looking at COVID-19 more as a natural disaster. So this here is a little graph that kind of shows kind of where we're at right now with dealing with COVID. And then it also breaks it down for us to each of those phases. Kind of like, you know, why were people hoarding toilet paper? And then again, normalizing the feelings that we are having at this time. And this here kind of more talks about the connection between emotions, our thoughts, behaviors, and also those physical sensations that we might be having, right? Like those headaches, stomach aches, trouble sleeping, things like that. And then again, breaking down each of those skills. And then this one here has a little bit of writing that is available. And then for the adults, what we've done is go ahead and break them all down here. So the deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, the 5 senses that we discussed, looking at our heart rate and how that affects our breathing and our bodies. And then again, the being skills, care skills, and then a little bit of some emotional writing for our adults as well. And what is that one? Any questions? I see a whole bunch of things going on in the chat. Let me check those out.
You have definitely sparked a lot of interest, Adriana, so congratulations.
I have answered most of the questions in the chat. I'll just kind of answer them all. I'll just real quick right now since I kind of know what they are. So the training is done. Catholic Charities is running the training. They have Dr. Robbie Nelson. She is a clinical psychologist. She's a neuro psychologist, and she's helped running the show. And Adriana and Wyatt, and they have quite a few members on their team that are doing these trainings out in the community. We are also doing a train the trainer, like she had said. So if there's anyone who would like to become a trainer to help get this information out to families, to anyone else in the community, we'll definitely work with you in getting you set up to do that. All of the hard copies currently are located at Catholic Charities in Yakima. If you would like to have copies sent to you, you could reach out to my email, which is dhalo@gcach.org, and we can have them sent to you. We are currently, we are currently having enough printed to have all of the school districts and the schools in our 9-county region to have copies of these for the students. But like we said, we're really hoping to, spark this as a community project, and that we could get the community helping us disseminate this information. Field Group has done an amazing job with crafting this and putting it together for us. And the skills were actually developed. We hired Dr. Kira Massa. She's a clinical psychologist that works with disasters, and she's actually the one who's developed these skills. And we really feel that these skills will be helpful for anyone, anybody. It can be applied to young kids, it can apply to our older community, and pretty much to anyone. So if anyone has any questions or concerns, they can reach out to me, or they can reach out to Catholic Charities. So Nicole from Field Group will kind of give an overview of the media in just a few minutes about how we're spreading the message through media, and then also give some statistics on where we're at so far with the campaign. But we'll definitely have enough time if anybody has any more questions that they would like to ask.
So we have questions in the chat box. I don't know whether Adriana or you, Diane, want to answer that.
I've answered most of them.
Well,
the last one that says C19 is only part of the whole issue of the day, economic, political, and all connected to these feelings and responses of stress. Oh, so that's just a comment. There's, it is in Spanish. You can get copies in Spanish sent to you or in English. If the stickers online can be printed, they're Avery printers. So you can, if you wanted them sent to you, like I said, we can mail them to you. We're very flexible with this campaign. So how you can share with your kid one day, one thing, or you can, do it in bite-sized pieces. There's lots of ways that this campaign can be used.
We also have lots of posters.
Yes.
That if anyone wants to hang them up within your agencies and things like that, we have lots of posters. I'll be doing some deliveries today for some orders that have already been put in. So feel free to contact us either through Diane or through Robbie, through myself. We'll make sure and get you the materials that you need.
Okay, perfect. And also I wanted to point out to you that there is parent handbooks to kind of explain this to the parents when they're working with their kids and how they should talk to their kids about the feelings that their kids may be having and just kind of normalizing some of the feelings that are happening right now. So I think that's really important as well. As we're going through this as well. So as soon as Nicole gets on the line, we'll have her presentation, but we are willing to take any other questions that you may have.
any more thoughts? Adriana, do you want to give your email out so people want to contact you like they can contact Diane? You might want to just make sure that's out there, if that's okay. All right. Well,
Patrick, this is Carol. So is this the point where we ask everybody to take a deep breath and practice the pause?
Yes, let's do that. How about you lead it?
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
And the reason that we chose practice the pause is because, that's really basically the basic step, the first step in all of this is, taking that slow down, take that pause to, okay, why am I feeling this? I know that I've used these skills. I was having an anxiety attack when I went to Walmart the other day, and I'm like, I don't have time for this. Stop it. You've got to stop this. I don't have time for this today. And it's kind of talking myself through it and, just trying to get through, that anxiety. And I'm like, okay, I gotta slow my breathing down. And it really does help, and it really does make a difference. And it's not just, I think everybody is feeling this way right now. We're all having feelings of tiredness, and we're all feeling maybe Zoom overload, or, we all have these feelings right now because it's been going on for almost a whole year. And, I think we still have quite a ways to go before we're really past all of this. And so I think just trying to help people get through this time, I think that's the most important part of this campaign.
Dr. Massa says every time she presents this, that it is impossible to have an anxiety attack and deep breathe at the same time. So I've been remembering that. and remembering all the times where my piano instructor always told me to take a deep breath before I would, perform. So it really does help.
Okay. Any other, along that same line, any other testimonials? I think we all do this, or many of us do this one way or the other. I'll just put in a plug for yoga. Something I've been doing for many years, and I do it 2 or 3 times a week. And breathing is an essential part of most of the yoga practice.
Adriana, how has the schools been taking this?
The schools have been really, really great. I was just thinking about the parent presentation that I did last week, and the parents, they really loved it. I really appreciated it. We talked about how to incorporate this into their household as well, and discuss this maybe like over dinner, make it like a dinner conversation, right? Bringing these skills when our kiddos are not in the middle of a tantrum or not in the middle of a meltdown, right? Practice these skills and talk about them before all of this happens, so that when that moment does come, when they're in that breakdown, meltdown, tantrum, you can say, hey, let's bring in these skills. Let's take a pause. Let's take a break. Let's take a breath, and those type of things.
So we have a comment from Everett Maroon just about the prevalence of these, what do we call them, disorders or definitely challenges. And thank you, Everett, for doing that. I think we've all become more aware of the widespread nature of these issues during COVID. Estacio, you've got a question? Are you muted, Estacio? If not, I can read it.
I was muted. I apologize. I just wondered if you could list off before the rest of the presentation, what organizations are you already working with, specifically here around Yakima and Lower Valley? That way we don't duplicate efforts as we reach out to them and letting them know about this.
So the ones that I can think of off the top of my head, we've reached out to the YWCA, NAMI, the ESDs. Diane, if you know of any other ones that we've reached
I
out
think that we've worked with all of the ESDs, so ESD 105, ESD 123, and parts of ESD 101. We have also, there's been other organizations that have reached out, so it's kind of hard to give you. I could give you the list if you wanted to reach offline, if you wanted to check on that, because we do keep track, so we do keep track, and so
that'd be great. Yeah, I just want to help get this get this out to our community as soon as possible. So thank you. Happy to follow up offline.
Yeah, no problem. And then Adriana, there was a question about Spanish presentations.
Yes. So we do have 3 people on staff. We all speak Spanish, are all able to do the presentation in Spanish.
And then also, if you wanted to contact us, you could contact myself or Catholic Charities. We're kind of keeping it. If you contact me, we kind of have a chain of. And then we go to Robbie, and then Robbie has her administrative assistants kind of helping her schedule these meetings with the team. So if you can, we're trying to keep it. If you come through me, then we can kind of work through getting people scheduled. But if you wanted to schedule a session for parents, then yeah, definitely reach out and we can get that scheduled for you.
And we're more than happy to work with all of your schedules. If we need to come in during our already scheduled meeting for a portion of it, or if there's trainings that you'd like to be done in the evening or early mornings, more than happy, we will find someone to be there and provide those trainings for you.
Very good. We still have a bit of time to just go around the table, so to speak, and ask any more questions of either Diane or Adriana. And some of that we can pick up.
We also, just another point I wanted to bring up too, is that we've reached out to some of our in our smaller communities. We have some partners that we're trying to work with, some of our behavioral health partners in those areas to help get this out, so it's not solely on Catholic Charities. And we do have some financial compensation for that. So if you're really interested in being a train the trainer and getting this information, and I know Whitman, we're working with their council, one of their councils there, and the Palouse River Counseling, and then Lords has offered to help with the Tri-Cities area, and we have Somerset and First Steps also helping, or getting those scheduled to do that train the trainer. And we're really hoping that we can get, in Walla Walla, if we could get some people in Walla Walla to help us, and maybe some up, over in over in the Asotin and Garfield counties. That would be really helpful if we could get some partners in those two counties to help us get it distributed out to them, and that way we can, we have all this information, and we have, a huge geographical region, and trying to get this information to everybody in a timely manner, because right now we know everybody needs this information now. And so we're trying to, expand the people who can help us do the training. It's pretty simple. It's just going through that PowerPoint and going through the toolkits, and so it's really simple. And in fact, anybody could do this. And so if you're really interested, please reach out to me, and we can definitely get you guys hooked up to help us.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, kudos? Thank you for those that have been written up in the chat box. So Adriana, good job.
Thank you.
And we have Nicole on the line now. So if we're ready to move on to the next part, she's going to talk about the campaign as well. So if you're ready, we can go ahead and move to her if you're wanting to.
Well, let me just ask. Typically, we take a break. We could go on now, and I don't know how much more discussion we will have, Diane.
Okay.
So if we want to make this a short meeting, which is fine with me, we can certainly bring Nicole on right now, and then wrap up before 11. What do people? Any thumbs up or thumbs down from chat? You want to tell me which way to go? There's a thumbs up from Kevin. I take it as proceeding as straight without taking a break. Okay, I see 2, 3. Okay. Why don't we then? I don't see too many thumbs down.
Most people say go on, keep going.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing here. So, Nicole, we haven't met before, and you might want to just briefly introduce yourself and what the field group does in general, and then your role in this discussion this morning.
Sure, happy to. Thank you for having me this morning. I am really excited to be here. This has been a really fun campaign to work on. Field Group, I am one of the owners and account manager for GCACH at Field Group Marketing and Advertising in Yakima. We have a full service marketing agency, and we work with probably a lot of people on the call. Actually, we work with a lot of nonprofits. A few years ago, we changed our business model to focus primarily on professional services and nonprofits, because that's really where our passion lies. So that's pretty much the crux of what we've been doing. The bulk of the work that we've been doing, been very busy during COVID, but through that work, we've seen the need and are really excited that we have the opportunity to work on this project with Dr. Mosseth's materials. And so I actually have a presentation I'll share, if I'm okay to share my screen.
I'm sure that will work.
And we'll kind of walk through this. I'm going to try to go a little quickly because there is a lot of materials, and it's fun to talk about. It's interesting to talk about these materials in kind of that vague context, but when you see just really how in-depth these materials go, this is obviously the PowerPoint presentation that you just saw, but the total scope of the toolkits and all of the materials that were put together, and in a really short period of time, we have the toolkits for the different age groups, 5 through 12, 13 through 18, and then a separate toolkit for adults, in addition to all of the media materials that we've been doing. I'm going to walk through some of those. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. This is just to see the full scope of everything.
Nicole, we walked through the toolkits, just so you know.
Okay, so I can move forward. How far do you want me to go forward then?
You can go ahead and keep going. I'm just letting you know, we went real detailed into the toolkit.
Okay.
So just do the overview. It's probably good.
I'll just go really quick then. So the landing pages, obviously we had both English and Spanish, the Practice the Pause and the Practica la Pausa that we worked on with several of our community partners. The toolkits, we've seen the activity books that we created for the ages 5 through 12, and that also included the parent handbooks. The toolkits for these are the additional pieces, the posters, the flyers. We used imagery that was a little more aimed towards an older audience for the teenagers, a little more detailed. This is more journaling. We included an activity for the emotional writing. These are the parent handbooks, flyers, posters. The toolkits for the adults, the activity books for adults, where we actually went through all of most of Dr. Mossett's training to explain in more detail so that they can understand really what's happening with them. We did create 2 TV spots. These are the longer version. I'm going to start with the Spanish and play that. Many of you may have seen these running on media.
¿Y qué tal si te dijera que lo que sientes ahora es normal y que todos lo estamos sintiendo? Cansado, frustrado, enojado y distraído. No importa si tienes 8, 18 u 80 años. Has perdido algo durante la pandemia y este trauma está afectando todo lo que haces. Estas son reacciones normales ante una situación anormal. No podemos controlar la pandemia, pero sí podemos controlar cómo reaccionamos. Empieza por hacer una pausa. Una pausa te da tiempo para reflexionar sobre lo que estás sintiendo y por qué. Te permite escoger lo que quieres pensar, hacer y ser. Practica hacer una pausa. Enfócate en lo positivo. Haz algo saludable que te guste y vive en el momento. Toma tiempo y práctica, pero hacer una pausa te da el poder de controlar tus emociones y mejorar tu vida. Aprende cómo controlarte, calmarte y cuidarte en practicalapausa.org.
And then the English version.
What if I told you that what you're feeling right now is normal and we're all feeling it together? Tired, frustrated, angry, distracted. Whether you're 8, 18, or 80, you've lost something to this pandemic, and that trauma is affecting everything you do. These are normal reactions to an abnormal situation. We can't control the pandemic, but we can control how we react to it. Start by taking a pause. A pause gives you time to think about what you're feeling and why, and allows you to choose how you want to think, act, or be. Practice positivity. Focus on the positive. Adopt a healthy behavior. Celebrate living in the moment. It takes practice, but taking a pause gives you the power to control your emotions and improve your life. Learn skills to cope, calm, and care for yourself at practicethepause.org.
So these are the 1-minute versions. They're the longer versions. They are on YouTube and we're sharing them through that medium. We have 60-second versions of these that are basically just the audio. That is what we're running for our radio ads. And then the 30-second versions of these, which are the TV spots that we're running right now.
What if
I'm hoping I can get this to go forward.
What you're feeling?
I don't know why it's not allowing me.
¿Y qué tal si te dijera que lo que sientes ahora es normal?
Sorry, I don't know why it's doing that, but I'm going to try to escape and go to the next slide. We also, in addition to the spots that we created for, and that's kind of our general audience, we also created videos and spots for both the teens and our youth audiences. The youth audience, we are running those on Facebook because we do want to target parents with those as well, but they're running on TikTok and Snapchat and Facebook in both, mostly the 30-second version. And then we have them on YouTube as well. So I'm actually gonna, because of time, I'm gonna play the 30-second version of each of these, and I'm gonna play the 30-second English youth to start.
When you pause a video or a song, everything stops. Wouldn't it be nice if you could pause things happening around you just long enough to take a big, deep breath? Sometimes when you feel bad, you can say or do things you don't like. But if you pause first, you can think about what you're feeling and why. Then you can choose to think, act, or be different, and that can make you feel better. Learn more at practicethepause.org.
And again, the graphics follow the same graphics as the toolkits. And then the Teen Spanish, which is running on Snapchat and TikTok primarily.
Cuando pones en pausa un juego, una canción o un video, todo se detiene.
That's not what I wanted to do, sorry.
Cuando pones en pausa un juego, una canción o un video, todo se detiene. ¿No te gustaría que pudiéramos poner en pausa lo que sucede a nuestro alrededor? Como esta pandemia, que nos hace sentir tan confundidos, enfadados y solos. Pero cuando nos sentimos así, podemos hacer una pausa. Reflexionar sobre lo que sentimos y por qué. Y elegir pensar, actuar o ser de otra manera. Piensa en algo positivo. Cambia tu rutina. Más información en practicalapausa.org.
Just because I have a lot of actions on this, I'm just going to move ahead this way and then I'll go back in the presentation mode. So we do have our radio spots in both English and Spanish media. We're running on KZTA, KZTV, KMNA, KDNA, and KZHR. Our strategy with radio was that we looked at stations that would leach over into the neighboring, best into the most geographic region, but also with a variety of different formats. So we wanted some country, we wanted some hot AC, we wanted some top 40s, but we wanted to make sure that they had a large geographic footprint so that we didn't have to buy every single radio station, just because there are a ton of little local radio stations throughout. We did buy a lot more radio stations over in Eastern Washington, primarily because there weren't a lot of leaching over from the other areas in that area. So they were kind of feeding off of each other. So that's why you see so many in the Lewiston area. So I don't need to, the audio is the same, so I won't play that again. So I can get this to go prior though. We do have 1,700 paid ads and 1,200 unpaid ads in Spanish radio. And the unpaid ads are matching ads. We do, because we're on KDNA, which, yes, there are a nonprofit, so they don't offer matching. That's why those numbers don't match entirely. Same with the English. We are on NPR, and there's not matching available on those. And on some of the stations in the larger markets, they don't do a one-to-one match. In most of our local markets, they do a one-to-one match for nonprofit. But we have a lot of radio ads running as well. Television, we're running on Australia, Azteca, Telemundo, and Univision. We're also running in both Yakima and Tri-Cities, as well as in Spokane and Lewiston. And again, we picked the stations that would have the best bleed into the local market. We asked, and basically mostly in the Pullman area, what are the stations that come in the best over there, and tried to reach that. We don't have a lot of local stations with great coverage in some of our more rural areas. It is one of the struggles that we have when we're reaching out to the Eastern Washington market, when we get outside of the Yakima Tri-Cities, without getting also into the Spokane market. And so we did do a lot of streaming television. And streaming television, you may most recognize as the Roku that you hook up and can get satellite or digital TV, Amazon TVs, Samsung TVs, the smart TVs. People have the Apple TVs. And so you can see that we had, this was just the first 2 weeks of the campaign. We had over 36,000 impressions. These were our top stations. You can see On, and Sling is also a subscription service, but has all of these stations below it. Philo, Discovery, and Exumo, and these were only the top ones. There were several others below. I just picked the top 5. So what does that look like on a map? This is where those streaming services, those streaming TVs are at throughout our region. So you can kind of see the location that a lot of those are spread out. And that was our goal, was to reach those areas that we may not be able to reach as much with regular TV, as well as our younger audience isn't watching local television. A lot of them are using the subscription services like Hulu and Netflix. And so this allows us that opportunity to reach them on that medium. A lot of you may have seen the billboards around town. We do have several billboards throughout the region. We looked at billboards throughout the entire region, but we also picked billboards that had the best presence. We have a real issue or difficulty trying to buy those a lot of times in the Tri-Cities area, as well as in the Ellensburg area, because of the fact that there's just not a lot of inventory. Yakima has a lot of inventory, so it's easier to buy for the Yakima area. in total, with all of those combined, we're getting over 944,000 impressions per week with those billboards. We have 14 of them in Yakima, 1 in Tri-City, or in Terrace Heights rather. We have 3 down in Wapato. We have 3 in Toppenish, Sunnyside. There's 1 and then 3 in Tri-Cities. We were able to find some decent locations in Tri-Cities, but we did look at some of the other areas and there wasn't a lot of inventory to choose from.
And also we will point out that the reason that there's a lot in Yakima is that we did have some funding from Yakima Health District. And so they were actually helped provide the funding for the ones in Yakima.
That's another issue that we came across was we can't be in every publication and on every platform just because there's so many throughout the entire region. And so because print advertising has the shortest shelf life generally and ends up having the highest cost because of that, we opted to not do a lot of print advertising just because of the cost and the short shelf life. We did, however, decide that it was important to do the Spanish language print media. So we have Toolkits, which is the dual language paper that's throughout Yakima and Tri-Cities. It does have a stronger hold down in Tri-Cities. El Sol is stronger in the Yakima Valley market, and La Voz is a little bit further towards the south and over into Walla Walla. We're placing 10 ads per publication. So basically almost it almost ends up being every week for the duration of the campaign from when we actually got them started. Doing a lot in digital and on social media in the advertising realm. We also have an editorial calendar that we've been working with Diane and Chelsea on, where they're posting organic posts about the campaign, but we are doing some paid posts as well on both Facebook and as well as through Google and other online tools. The other thing you might see a lot of, as we do have mobile in there as well, so you might see in-app ads popping up if you're playing games or things like that. Each one of the digital ads that we created, and we had 6 of these ads actually, each one of them had to be sized 18 different sizes so that we could fit them in no matter where they show up on the page. And then obviously we're buying those at the exchange, so we're buying remnants through the Google exchange. And this is the other ads. So how have the ads fared so far? The Facebook ads, this is only the first week. We had put this together just a bit ago. We wanted to give it a little time, but this was from the 18th through the 31st, so a little over a week. The Facebook ads, we had 1,600 clicks right off. These are on the paid ads, 253,000 impressions, a 0.63 click-through rate. We struggle a little bit with how do we define this? Is this healthcare? Is this education? We put the average for education, which was 0.73. This is also a learning campaign, so it will, as more people are following it and clicking on it, we'll see those rates go through a little bit more and a little bit higher. Search ads, the same. We had 51 clicks on only 735 impressions, a 6.94% click-through rate. That's a really strong click-through rate. For education average, it's usually about 3.78%, so we're way above average on that. So as far as our YouTube and video ads, our click-through rate is 0.09%. We'd like to see that a little bit higher. Again, they hadn't been running very long. And again, as we see more of how they're running, we'll see people learn the algorithms will follow that and track that and get them in front of the right people better. Impressions, there was 212,000 impressions of the video ads, and almost half of them watched them through to the end. Most of you are aware you can click off of them at any point in time, and I do that a lot. But almost half of the people that the ad popped up for watched it all the way through the end without clicking out of it. So that's not, when you look at clicks, we're looking at clicking through to the website or whether you're watching the full ad, and we do have good viewership on the ads. Oops, sorry, my screen is above here. So the page itself has done very well on the Facebook page for the organic posts. We've had 353 likes during this period. We've reached over 2,000, almost 2,400 with organic post reach, and the post reach engagement, which is people saying, giving thumbs up or sharing, or that's over 5,000. We are still seeing, and during the bulk of this campaign, we had more of the English language ads running than the Spanish language ads due to translation and things like that. The Spanish language media got started a week later than the English language media. But we did have a lot of Spanish language ads that received viewers that these were presented to and that clicked. And our website analytics, we had 1,500 new users in that first week. So we were pretty happy with how the numbers are coming out. We'll continue to watch this and engage this and have more information for you as we proceed. But that is, and I know I went very fast, but I know you've been on this call for a while. Does anyone have any questions regarding the campaign?
We've had some questions in the chat box. Mostly kudos, Nicole.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
One of them was, how do you answer the, how do you, what was it? About impressions.
Major impressions per week on the, I'm guessing that was on the billboards.
Yeah.
The billboard phrasing is eyes on impressions. And so the billboard companies actually do car counts and traffic counts. So it's not only people, in our area, it typically tends to be traffic counts because they're looking at the vehicles through and they're identifying how many eyes on impressions. And so they identify different areas and how much traffic are on those roads. And they count that as eyes on impressions. And so that's how billboards are counted. On some of our boards, we have upwards of 50,000 people driving by every day. Some of our boards were down to about 20,000. Again, we chose locations that we thought would have the best visibility. So did that answer that question?
Yep.
So any more questions besides those that have been posted or comments that have been posted in the chat box? Any more questions of Nicole?
And I did have a direct message on checking another radio station, and I'll look into that and see if that is a possibility.
Okay, well, the facilitator has a question for you, Nicole, and that would be, what is the timeline for this campaign?
The ads are scheduled to run through the middle of April with the existing funding. And we're in the process right now of analyzing, have we done some good savings? And are we able to extend that a little bit further? We did have the materials that are now being published. And if we can get some savings on that, we're hoping there might be additional funds to put back into the campaign to extend some of these more successful pieces a little bit further. But we're currently scheduled through the middle of April with the existing funding.
We've been lucky. We had, like I said, we had the Yakima Health District donate some funding, so that was able to kind of make our money go a little bit further that we had originally allocated to this project. You know, with the hopes of maybe some of the other health districts may want to partner with us to continue the length of the campaign. The education piece will continue on after probably the 3-month. We really wanted to have the media up and going when we got the training going, so that people would have a resource of where to go. We did start some of the training. We piloted it through our behavioral health and the providers, and then we also did it through the Catholic Charities school system. And so we kind of piloted it to see how it would fare with previous materials. And now that we have these materials, it's been so much better. The materials that Field Group has developed were exactly what we had described to them, and they did an amazing job of putting them together and making them user-friendly and making them, available for the age groups. Because I think that's the biggest key for the toolkits, is having them be able for the different age groups to understand and be able to use the skills.
Okay.
One thing I didn't mention that I'll just bring in briefly, Diane, I forgot to add to it, is the direct mail piece. And so in addition to this, one piece that I didn't add on here was that we did do a direct mail piece to all teachers within our district with a link to the website and telling them about the materials that are available. And so we did buy a list and send that to all teachers throughout the 9-county region.
Yes. And that is also, then that way when we're when we finally get into their schools, they already have the idea that it's there, and hopefully they were able to go and look at the materials before the training actually happened.
Any more thoughts for Nicole? Thumbs up.
Actually, hi, I'm Jenny. I did have a question.
Okay, Jenny.
I work with the Richland School District, and within our middle and high schools, we have our community and schools. And I wasn't sure if perhaps in addition to the teachers being contacted through direct mail, if you'd want to reach out to the community and schools in all areas, and perhaps I missed that.
Through the direct mail, I think we're in the process now of identifying what that next market might be, and if budget will allow us to send out an additional direct mail. But Diane, I'm sorry, I kind of jumped on you.
That's okay. I was going to say we could, you know, Jennifer, if you could email me some information about the community and schools, and maybe who a contact could be that we could, you know, hopefully get the training into the community and schools as well.
Sure will.
That's a good thought. Thank you, Jennifer. Any other corners of the 9 counties that make up the GCACH that maybe we could cover that haven't been covered to date? Any other organizations?
I've already had quite a few people reach out to me by email about wanting to help, you know, get this information out, and I really, really appreciate that. So thank you for that. And if anybody else wants to help, you know, with this training and getting the information out, please reach out to me.
Nicole, what would it take to extend the campaign another month or two, just financially? What do you think? What's the ballpark number? Or is that too hard to come up with one?
Kind of hard to come up with, but another $50,000 would go a long way.
Okay.
Definitely. Currently, I think we've put about at least 200,000 into for 3 months of media.
Okay.
Whereas social media, TV, radio, I think that's around about as much probably as we've spent. So I mean, it's quite a bit, but it would be really great to have it, you know, if anybody wanted to contribute any funding or anything to it, we would definitely not turn it away. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's a very multifaceted campaign, and I just, from a person who used to spend lots of money on advertising, it seems very well thought out. So congratulations.
We have it as a turnkey approach. I mean, it's all ready and done, and so all it would take is just, I think, you know, if we wanted to continue it, you know, a few more months or whatever, it wouldn't cost too much more to do that. But we've put as much as GCACH can put into it. You know, we put in a 500,000, and so you know, we've really put as much as we can put into it. But you know, we've had some generous donations. We had a donation from Cambia, which has provided us to be able to print the materials. We were able to print the materials for all the schools. And so, you know, that's 140,000 students across the 9-county region. So, I mean, just having that funding, we were so thankful for that. And then it's also helped us to be able to, you know, provide the training and have Catholic Charities be the main point of contact to help us do this training. And so we've been really great with the partners that we've had. And, you know, we would welcome anyone that would also like to contribute.
If I may, this is Jenny again.
Hi, Jenny.
Yeah. Hi. I'm not sure, what about public service announcements? Those are generally at no cost. And maybe even working with television stations that are local in the areas that are being targeted to do morning announcements. And I know that Cadillac sponsors a 5-minute take, something along that lines. And I don't think that would be in competition with Catholic Services, but perhaps maybe seeing how to work with their team.
Good idea.
Maybe their marketing team to perhaps promote. And I also know that they do a lot of education work at their Healthplex. So there's different avenues there. In addition, with the different companies that you're using to promote and market, they may offer some sort of, I don't want to say kickback, but some sort of discount, knowing that you'll possibly be doing this again in the future. COVID isn't going away. So perhaps they can consider saying, hey, yeah, we'll meet you halfway. And they like to have continual business. So it's a win-win.
And I will say that our partners in the media have been very, very generous. I mentioned some that are doing one-to-one, some have done above and beyond that. And Minerva can attest to, I drug her out last time we did a campaign. We were able to get some of our media partners to do live on-air interviews as well. And so that's a second stage of this, I think, is how we use the PR piece of this. This was a very, very quick campaign. We came on board December 8th and launched on January 18th with all of this material. And so it feels like it's been really rolling very quickly. So now we have time to sit back and kind of start thinking through what are some of those proactive ways that we can use that. I agree with that. And again, most of our local media is offering at least one-to-one matching. And they are very good about using the PSAs as well. And we will use, Univision has their En Comunidad, which has been very supportive of us in the past, as well as KIT here in Yakima. KPG I know does some. So we'll talk to them as well. That's a great point.
Yeah, we just barely had a press conference as of yesterday. So like Nicole said, we're really thankful how quickly they were able to produce this material. And now we can take a step back, we can take that pause, and then we can move forward on how to get the advertising and how, kind of like the second phase on getting the information out now. So really our focus has been just getting this launched. And now that it's launched, we can focus on getting the information out to everybody.
All right. Any other questions?
Oh, there was been a comment about the Facebook, the ads. We had an issue with our Facebook. So some of the ads that we originally had starting to go were not going. So we've rectified that. And so hopefully we'll start having some Spanish ones as well. We can try to get those going.
And to clarify that, Diane, the ads are running. It's the actual organic posts that weren't posting. But the Spanish language ads and the English language ads on Facebook have been running for a couple weeks now. Just the organic posts we're not posting.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. And then also on the website, if you're on practicethepause.org, at the bottom of it, it will switch. You can switch it from English to Spanish. Just that clarification on that as well. Yeah, so you see how it has that, and then
Very good. This is a question for Carol. Is this something that could be shared with any other ACH in particular? I'm thinking of North Central with a strong Latina population in those counties.
Absolutely. We're willing to share information. I know that Olympic Community of Health is doing a community resilience campaign. I don't think it's quite this extensive, but yeah, we are happy to share this information, and I've been talking it up at our ACH meeting. So hopefully they will take the bait.
Well, it's in my just reading the comments, and certainly my own impression, it's very well done and very thoughtful and very comprehensive. So why not share it if it could be shared?
Absolutely. we're hoping that the whole state would adopt it actually, Patrick, but we'll start with another.
We're working on it. The Department of Health is going to attend some of our trainings next week. So we're hoping, you know, that's all we can do is reach out, and if they are willing to help, you know, press it forward, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Got it. All right. I think we have come to the end of our presentations, and we did have time allotted for a discussion, but I think we've just been through that. So are there any more questions about the Practice the Pause and the Cope, Calm, Care campaign?
Oliver, did you have a question?
He's just letting everybody know he's leaving, but
okay.
I asked him to reach out to me directly. Okay. He offered to help with some of the training, so I asked him to reach out to me directly.
Great, thank you, Diane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, bye, Oliver.
Okay, so why don't we just wrap up then? And before we say Happy New Year one more time, does anybody from the ACH staff want to add anything besides Diane, Carol, West? Do you have any comments that you want to pass on to the group about where we're at and what we think the next 2 or 3 months might bring?
What is our program for next month, Diane? I'm trying to remember.
Chelsea? I'm sorry, my brain is like, what's going on today?
I've forgotten as well. So.
Chelsea might be able to give us a little update. She is.
Don't ask me why it takes forever to get off mute. I'm sorry. Here, I'm pulling up the event flyer. So we had sent this out a little earlier this month. So just to help everyone prepare in advance, we try to line up everything for the year. So if you go to our website under resources, you should be able, and you scroll down, you should be able to see our 2021 event schedule. So for next month, we will be covering health equity. So we will be posting some more information on that. Carol, do you want to provide an overview, or Diane?
No, I think that's pretty good. Yeah. Okay. But I do want to bring up one more thing, that we are having a learning collaborative for this month, and it is going to be on the what day is it on? The 28th.
26th.
The 26th, the Friday the 26th, and it is on Team Steps, and we're having Karen Heal from Health Management Associates come, and if you, it's really going to be a good thing for teams. So if you could bring more than one of your organization to come to it, please register in advance. And the link is on our website, and you just click on it and you say register, and then you can register for it. But there's more information about it. But it's going to be a really great learning collaborative.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's.
I do, Patrick, if I could quickly highlight as well, when you, just because I know it's a new process, so when you do go to our webpage, formerly we would send out Outlook meeting invites for our convenings, but because we've reached so many people in our audiences that want to attend our convenings, it's kind of causing some trouble in our Outlook. So now we're asking folks to please register via Zoom. We will send meeting reminders to your email, but you will want to either register through the email, or you will want to visit our website. You know, you can visit the calendar, and then you can see Leadership Council here or Learning Collaborative. So you should be able to find all the meeting information there to register for any upcoming meeting. You would just click register here like we talked about. And of course, there's a nice summary, and then you can also find the flyer and agenda there. So we post those as soon as we have all the information completed. But if you have any questions on trying to sign up for a meeting or any meeting topics or dates and times, please do not hesitate to reach out to me.
All right. With that, Carol, you're done with your comments? Anything else to share with the group?
Nope, I just have a great Celebrate Friday. I'm going to put out my red lantern, Patrick.
Put out the red lantern and have a little bit of a feast and enjoy the year of the ox. It's going to be a good year. So if not, we'll if we don't have any further business to conduct, we'll see you all in March 17th.
Great,
So
thank you. Thanks, Patrick.
And,
Thank you.
let's carry forward the calm and care attitude that we've all picked up today.
Okay, remember to practice the pause.
Practice the pause.
Carol, this
Yes?
is Monica from Rod's house. Sorry, I was sending it in the chat box, but what's your contact information? Is it just cmoser@gch.org? Okay.
GCACH, yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Monica.
Yeah.
See ya. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.